depression, obsession, check on my voice for those that don't speak out like pantomimes. When life don't pan out like they fantasize, these candid eyes have seen no scenes.
Hi, I'm Mark.
And my thoughts are proof of
Mark
it.
James Williams.
Full of disillusion, confusion, consuming every movement, suiting up for years. And my shirts are iron.
Otis Frizzell, long time partner in crime with this guy. OJ Slave, Mo Show, radio, general hip-hop assassins and media wars. Sort of all listening to party rhymes and general sort of positive message jump up stuff, and it was EPMD and there's, you know, and the Public Enemy, and there wasn't, gangster rap really hadn't been invented as such when we first started listening to it. And we listened to a lot of native tongue stuff, and it was all just, it was have a good time. So that's what inspired us, and that's what sort of was reflected in our music. But it still exists these days, but as ever, as soon as hip hop started evolving and selling and growing, there was only ever a faction of hip hop that continued on this sort of righteous path, and they suffered from lack of publicity, I suppose, to this day. Still exists, but it doesn't get the big push, I suppose.
When we fell in love with hip hop, it wasn't about the charts or what was number one. It was we just liked songs because we liked the songs, you know what I mean? And I think, yeah, and a lot of that music's message was, you know, peace, love, having fun. That was the vibe that drew us to it, you know what I mean? And
you didn't have to be black. No one was saying that you had to be black to do it. So we were like, oh, that's cool then. We can have a go.
That's us. I think, well, yeah, I mean, at its core, of course, it's a African American art form. At its core, that's what it is. But yeah, as it's evolved, and 30 years, whatever, down the line, you know, it's something that's spread all over the world, and people all over the world have appropriated it to suit themselves. You know what I mean? And here in New Zealand, it's like, it's more. We've just by adding our own cultural references to it, and our own styles, and our own slang, and
yeah, I mean, you wear a lava and say kia ora in a hip hop video, then there's a bit of Polynesian and a bit of Māori. It's like, if you try too hard to change it, then it's not hip hop anymore, because it's got to have a beat, and it's got to have a rhyme, and it's got to have a hook, and a
DJ, and you know.
And if you're inspired by hip hop and influenced by hip hop, you want to do hip hop. You can't spend your whole life trying to change it to your own thing, because then it's not hip-hop anymore. Why would you want to change something that good?
And you know what I'm saying, like rap about New Zealand things or whatever, you know, to somehow make it, you know, hip-hop. And sometimes that was it was like taking it too far. It's like you don't have to go that far with it, whereas just by the act of doing it and telling the stories that from your part of the world or your neighborhood or your city or what have you, that just by osmosis it becomes New Zealand hip hop. I mean, that's Polynesian culture. I mean, Polynesian culture is colourful.
It's flowers and
flowers.
Sort of...
That's the islands, you know what I mean? So I think you see a lot of that. You know, that trend that just comes through. You know, people wearing, you know, whether it's the lava or the flower in the hair or the floor shirt or the jandals or even, I don't know, like, you know. There's all sorts of versions on that,
and it's probably not even necessarily like a totally conscious decision to add some color to hip hop. It's just like it's just doing your natural thing while integrating a bit of a hip hop flavor into it. So it's a sort of natural evolution.
It's this thing, you know, you're wearing the basketball singlets and you're wearing the baseball caps, and you just want to be American. So I think what happened was there was a real, amongst the people who made music or performing or whatever, there's a real push to actually say, oh, no, actually not. And so people would incorporate their own fashion or their own customs or their lava. You know what I mean? They would bring that in as a kind of statement to say, no, hang on, yeah, I'm doing hip hop, but I'm actually representing myself and my own culture here. I'm not, you know, I'm not wanting to be.
It's funny how people never win it.
But we were the hardest working rap band in the country.
Yeah.
And we gigged every weekend for like 3 years, pretty much straight. from the 89 to 92, you know what I mean?
Even more, and like we played with Public Enemy and De La Soul and Ice Cube and Ice-T and Red Hot Chili Peppers and MC Hammer and you know, it was like, and not necessarily because we were the best, but sometimes just because we were the only one.
Yeah, well, we were just not unafraid, and we were just ready to do it, you know what I mean? It was like, so I think...
We did, however, turn down the one opportunity to support New Kids on the Block.
Yeah. Yeah, we turned them down.
That was our most righteous hip-hop moment, I think.
We made the papers because we turned them down, actually, that
Front
year.
cover of the Truth. The Kiwi rappers snub the new kids.
Snub the new kids.
Yeah, I mean, kids can tell once shit gets whack. It's like mall graph, you know. It's like if someone's got if there's a billboard with some bombing on it that some 45-year-old drongo did in an advertising agency, and he put an arrow at the end of every letter, kids are like, oh, that's just whack. No one's fooled by that.
No one's fooled by that.
But of course, if the corporates pay a real graph artist to do it, it might look dope, but then people are like, oh shit, that graph artist sold out because that's real graph on a, and it all gets, but it's like, you've just got to sift through the shit, and people aren't stupid, and you can tell what's real and what's fake. And I mean, you got to get paid. I mean, it's fake. I'm 34. We're nearly in our mid-30s, and I don't give a fuck if people. If I do a corporate job and someone wants to diss me for it, I don't give a fuck because we've put in our 15 years of dedication to hip hop for the righteous cause.
We're past the point of trying to prove to anyone whether we're down or not. It's that's I'm not worried about that anymore.
We've done that.
We've suffered
done that for our art.
That's right. So I'm just like, so now, I mean, that's okay. But at the same time, I'm like, I'm not really.
There's levels.
There is levels, and I'm not really into like Boost Mobile, some telecom giving themselves a new name so that they can be down with the kids.
A hip hop name.
You know what I mean?
Hook up with Boost.
Yeah, y'all. And I mean, but at the same time,
telephone company.
You know what I'm saying? Get on your mobile. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that's lame.
You don't have to be from a ghetto to make good hip hop, and nor do you have to claim ghetto sort of status to be a.
That is the worst, because people are like, oh yeah, you know what I mean? I stole some candy bars from the shop once when I was 13, Does that legitimize me? Hip-hop fashion has really come through so that people stepped away from wearing, the LA Lakers jersey or the New York Yankees jersey or whatever like that. Stopped kind of being so enamored with what the American NBA singers or whatever and started printing their own or doing their own shirts or, Utara, you know what I mean? I've got my Grey Lynn, you know what I mean? This is sort of happening. It kind of was a strange phenomenon because suddenly everybody was like, doop, doop, first couple of people started printing shirts like that, and it was like, hang on a second, I can represent my own shit.
My own neighborhood.
Wow, it was like,
I've never been to the Bronx. What's this t-shirt mean?
I mean, it's not that it seems like an obvious thing, but when it happened, it's really taken off like wildfire. Like now,
the ether relay, it sort of spreads.
It spread real wide because it was like amongst our friends who are artists and print T-shirts, they started doing the Grey Lynn shirts or the South Auckland shirts or this sort of thing, and it was like suddenly it just started happening. It just like spread, and suddenly all over the country, people were like doing shirts that represented their own neighborhood or their own city, and it was like hallelujah. It was like God, it was like really awesome. People really could just like.
Well, it's a sign of it's strangely enough, it's like a subconscious sign of intelligence because the sort of the drongo wannabe blingy little shits with no actual sort of mind of their own or personality. And too much money. It's easy for them to just go and buy the newest Jordans and the widest pants and the weirdest puffer North Face hang off the shoulder
oversized t-shirt down
it's sort of like that's easier to buy because you can go into a hip-hop shop and say, can you dress me like a rapper? And they'll say, well, you need this and this, and that'll be $1,000, and out you go.
As far as modern hip-hop and hip-hop now goes, even New Zealand but also around the world, I think it's the phenomenon that's happening right now, unfortunately. It's that hip-hop is eating itself, I think, in lots of ways, because I think it's hip-hop historically always borrowed and took bits and pieces from other cultures and genres and styles, and okay, we'll take those Latin drums, and we'll take that fat Black Sabbath guitar riff, and we'll take, you know what I mean, like borrowing different musical styles and stuff and influences, and I think that's initially what made the music itself, not the culture, but the music itself, like so so awesome because it could put on a different frock for every song.
Different hoodie.
Different hoodie, perhaps, is a better name. But now I think it borrows on itself. You know what I mean? It's only borrowing from itself. It's only listening to the next guy. So you kind of get this sort of, it starts kind of imploding sort of thing where, you know, it's
getting generic. It
starts genericizing itself because it's like, it's chasing its tail. It's chasing the tail of what's the top of the pops is. And I mean, I suppose that's partly corporatization and partly just the way our media and the fact that we do have hip-hop stations that, you know, and
hip-hop and R&B.
Hip-hop and underground will always be there. The hardcores will always be there. The people are really passionate about it and believe about hip-hop culture in its purest form. It's never going to disappear. But the corporatization and the highfalutin sort of blinged out sort of picture that some people call hip-hop, but in lots of ways it's not.
And it's not R&B either. R&B isn't R&B and hip-hop isn't hip-hop.
You know what I mean?
I don't know what it is.
At that level, I don't even know what to call that shit anymore. You know what I mean? I think, but that's not to say it will always be there. And if the corporates all bailed tomorrow, it still wouldn't matter. It's like hip-hop is just the same. It's the same.
There's a lot of haters out there.
A lot of haters, but particularly I think from media people, you know, outside of hip-hop circle, they just see it as, and particularly, you know, outside of America, obviously, they're like, you just want to be American. It's like, and they really miss the point. It's just the vehicle.
Yeah, I sit in this room listening to this tune spinning on loop, breathing this evening like I'm living anew. Saw this picture of you, it's like you lifted the noose. I'm free from this now. You told me to give him the truth. Told me you owe me, show me the bony kid that I knew. Kid, I grew to a man, spit this shit sicker than who? Anyone else? Speech tight, blistering fool, still missing.